Thank you for joining me. This is week 10 of Management Systems. We're going to talk about behaviors, about things that help motivate all of us, employees, management in terms of safety behaviors. So let's get started. What are you going to learn? After this lecture and all the reading materials under the learning materials section, we're going to talk about the importance of safety behavior in the workplace, look at the categories of safety behavior, because it's not just enough to have the policies and procedures or a joint health and safety committee. We also need to have people's buy-in. We're going to also discuss and explain the importance of individual motivation in safety behavior. We're going to describe behavior modification approaches to motivating safety and recognize how goal setting and feedback influences safety behaviors. So that constant feedback loop, having goals in mind that are tied to the company's goals, these are all very important. We'll also talk about the self-determination theory of motivation. If you take an organizational behavior or psychology courses, you're already one leg up because you understand how this motivates people, everything from smoking cessation programs, going into a wellness program, joining the gym. You really need to create that self-determination theory of motivation first, understand it, and then apply it. Evaluate the role of organizational support for safety and contributing to safety behaviors. And we're going to talk about the role of the safety climate in the performance of safety behaviors. In addition, leadership is essential here. We need to understand the role that safety leadership plays in creating that safe work environment. If we don't get the C-suite, the executive buy-in, we're basically putting up that proverbial rock up that hill, and we're not going to get everyone else's buy-in. So it's very important to start with the executive team, making sure that they're backing you up, not just enough for them to give you money or resources. They really have to support you in the process. We're going to talk about occupational health and safety management systems and appreciate how they help companies promote their workplace safety. So there is a little opening vignette here on Borger Group. They're a construction company. They're one of the leaders in health and safety. They believe in creating a holistic whole person viewpoint, looking at safety and their company's values that are tied in together, and looking at it from a physical, social, emotional safety, thinking of the psychosocial hazards that people have in their workplace, look in the light of COVID of the stress, the work effort. They really look at it from a holistic perspective. Safety is an integral part of the company's success. When you have a safe workplace, you're going to have happier employees, productive employees, loyal employees, and you're going to see an improvement in your bottom profits for it. So they basically, Borger Group considers their success is really truly thanks to their innovative safety program. It's diverse. They've used technology like their Borger app. They also have a performance-based bonus system that rewards for safety, not just management getting that bonus, but also employees, and allowing employees a voice in ways of making the place safe. Safety behaviors. It's behaviors leading to safe performance of a particular job, tying it in to everything that we do in HR, from our hiring practices, when we post the job. Do we emphasize that safety is number one, that our company cares about number one, and that we're looking for candidates that, let's say, have safety training or even certification? Are we looking at people's resumes right from the recruitment process that they believe in safety, not just for themselves, but for their colleagues? Now, as an organization, we continuously have to promote safety, and there's lots of different ways, and we'll talk about that in this this recorded lecture. But some of the things include proper use of hazard control systems. Remember our RAC, recognize, assess, and control. Remember hierarchy of controls, that pyramid that was upside down. We need to make sure that PPE should not be our first point of contact, or control measure rather. We need to really look at eliminating the hazard or substituting if we have to, but have we introduced new hazards? Looking at, yes, at our admin controls, engineering controls, but making sure that we're really trying to eliminate the hazard right from the get-go. That is your paramount thing. Do we have safe working habits? Are we encouraging people and giving them feedback when they do well? You know, that proverbial pat on the, pat on the back? Are we giving people constant feedback? Also, education, training, increased awareness, and recognition of hazards, but also communicating hazards. Remember, one of the worker rights under the Occupational Health and Safety Act is the right to know. Right to know that you have hazards, right to be educated and trained, right? And also the acceptance and use of personal protective equipment. In some cases, you cannot eliminate, you can't substitute, you can't re-engineer the job. So then you do have to go to, and admin controls aren't going to be enough. So then you're going to have to tie in personal protective equipment with your administrative controls, which are policies, procedures, those standard operating procedures. Safety programs can be classified as engineering, admin, or behavioral interventions, right? So our engineering interventions, we can think about re-engineering, looking at our environment, making changes to reduce that hazard in the first place. Some cases creating barriers, thinking of an X-ray, you may have a lead wall protecting the patient who gets the X-ray, that lead wall, and the X-ray technologist, right, the radiologist. Min controls, well, that's what I do. Those lovely policies and procedures, standard operating procedures called SOPs. We may have to look at how the job is done. If we're introducing machinery or chemicals, we're going to have to modify our standard operating procedures known as SOPs, and then promote training, and constantly looking at your work environment and the potential hazards that people are exposed to, and modifying our SOPs, modifying job descriptions, getting people trained. It's essential that we communicate when we do make changes to any of our policies and procedures. Behavioral interventions, changing employees' attitudes. How I did that at one distribution plant, they did not want to wear masks. This is pre-COVID, and because they were always doing their job the same way, and I explained to them how important it is to wear a mask, and the proper mask, and wear it properly. Don't wear it on your ear or as a necklace. And explaining, that even though it's not required by law based on what they were doing, based on the safety data sheet, because it was toner cartridges, I said, well, my father was told he didn't have to wear one at an asbestos plant, and he ended up getting black lung disease, which is cancer. So wouldn't you want somebody to go above and beyond? Or do you want somebody to be lax and then 20 years down the road you find out you get lung cancer? And I explained to the individual who was really hesitant that, it was very hard for my mother and I to see him come home and his nose is bleeding constantly. And that, yeah, he ended up getting lung cancer, and it was very hard on all of us. And so that person, when you do storytelling, you explain to them personally how it affects you. It becomes more real. It becomes more genuine. It shows that you care. So that person became my biggest advocate. That individual was my biggest resistor, saying, "Who is this HR person coming in here and telling me what to do? Been here 20 years or 10 years." And when I told them and I took them aside and I told them my story, with empathy, that person came back to me and said, "I didn't know that." and became my biggest advocate. And he was part of my orientation. He showed people how to properly wear the masks, and if people had latex issues for gloves, he would be the biggest advocate to get. He'd even find suppliers. Like, he made people wear their masks properly, and he was part of my orientation training. He was my biggest advocate. So you can change people's minds. You can. It's just sharing your knowledge with another person. So safety behaviors, all three types of interventions that we discussed earlier can be successful. You can put them all in the same place at the same time. Engineering controls, yes, obviously are preferred, but we may not be able to change our environment. We may not have the budget. We may not have the resources. Sometimes how the job itself is done, you can't change an entire assembly line for one worker, let's say. So you have to be reasonable, but at the same extent, try to find creative ways, see what best practices are. Um, it's really important to look at what's the competition doing for safety, not just, they say, no, we're doing it better and they're doing it wrong, but maybe there's leaders there. So understanding safety behavior in the workplace and benchmarks of what's working and what isn't, I think is very helpful. Again, proper use of PPEs. I won't say where, but 5 years ago, I saw somebody welding and they're smoking at the same time. And oh my God, they're on a ladder and they got flip-flops. And I'm just like, wow, okay, this is not health and safety. Uh, so making sure people have the right protection. This is a welder, obviously. Making sure you might also have signs so that people don't look at the welding. Um, in this case, it looks like it's a tanker, but I could be wrong. If it's on the ground, you may even have like a complete different department where only welders are. Look at also the fumes. Does the person have a proper mask underneath? Is it geared towards the wit? They're using TIG, MIG. I don't know which type of welding they're using here. Is the glasses the right type? If there's a little crack in that, you have to replace that. Do not let somebody work on crack lenses like that. Safety behavior can be distinguished as safety compliance, where employees are following the rules, procedures, everything's running tickety-boo, my technical term of the day, but also safety participation, where people go beyond the scope of just baseline compliance. Okay, we checked off the health and safety, we're all good here. It's people who think of how can we improve things constantly, being proactive, creating that voice for employees to communicate when things aren't safe. So safety behavior, you may have seen something similar to this for yourself in health and wellness, is ability, motivation, and opportunity. Are we creating those safe spaces, right, for that safe environment? It can be enhanced, safety and safety performance and behaviors can be enhanced by increasing employees' abilities, motivation, and opportunities to work safely. Are we allowing continuous improvement, not just from management telling what employees to do, but are we allowing employees to tell management, there's a better way of doing this? Is there also opportunities for people to even submit things anonymously for quality improvement suggestions? Um, Looking at things like um, suggestion boxes, right? Those old school boxes that you would put in, how do we improve things? Well, do we allow that to happen? Looking at ability, motivation, opportunity, you need to have all of those components for that safety and safety performance. Looking at training, making sure it's engaging, making sure the training itself is customized for that organization and the job itself. Um, Training onto itself isn't enough to change safety behaviors over the long term. You need to tie it onto the job. You need to reward. You need to also maybe tie it to the company's or the individual's performance measurement. You need to create and incentives sometimes, and those friendly reminders, and also that continuous feedback loop. So safety motivation, an individual's willingness to exert effort to enact safety behavior, the balance associated with those behaviors. So when we do reward people or explain to them why it's important, it needs to be important for the person. It needs to be satiating. It needs to whet their appetite. If you're just forcing your hand on people, they're going to force back. So we need to really find out what's important for employees. You also have to time back to the training section of how important it is to look at people's training styles. But have we talked to people, the employees, what's important to them? Have you really got to know your employees? And can we create, an environment that's safe for people to speak, have a voice, but we're also satiating their needs for safety, their needs for a voice, their needs for self-actualization, and explain to them how it all ties in. There's three theories of motivation that apply to safety here: safety behavior reinforcement theory, goal setting theory, and self-determination theory. So let's take a look at some more. Here's another, I guess, how should I put it, signage, um, a reminder of safety behaviors. You may see things like safety boards that say 0 accidents this month, 0 injuries this month, or injury-free, safe worker for 10 years. If you've ever been to a Home Depot and you see on their bibs or their uniforms, they have little patches, little badges. And so one of them could be like a little badge like this. You can even reward employees of Employee of the Month, not just for customer service, but also safety, right? So some people do criticize these things, so it is motivating, but unions tend to not like this type because it's putting the safety on the worker. Well, my viewpoint is, and I am a union member, I think we all have a vested interest in everybody's safety. So yes, if manager puts some of the effort on workers, I think workers, it empowers them to be part of the system, of the safety behavior system. And I think we all have a vested interest in making sure everyone's safe in the workplace. But some of these reminders unions may not like, just to let you know. So a risky side of behavior-based safety programs. Here's the flip side that I was talking about. Safety incentives can be intimidating for employees. Some workers may feel pressure to not report an injury to avoid costing workers a reward, particularly if it's a group or a team or a department safety award. They don't want to whistle blow because then it affects everyone. They don't get their fat bonus. So others may feel fear, apprehension. I don't want to be a whistleblower. I think I'm being a whistleblower here. I don't want to, I might get disciplined. I don't want to tell anybody this. So there's different perspectives around, you know, having these behavioral based safety programs right from the onset, right? So consider not only the positive, but do consider, some of the, how should I put it, room for improvement, challenges, or union saying that this is not the right way to go. It's good to get different viewpoints because then maybe it helps you create a better workplace. Um, so your stakeholders involve the union. They're experts in health and safety. So not only do you get to divide and conquer the work, but you can get some really good feedback, even if it's negative and you don't like to hear it. It's an opportunity for you to improve. Um, what else is there? Uh, Okay, so in some cases, actions that get rewarded are the avoidance of negatives outside the worker's control. So some things just are outside of the person's control, obviously. Um, so things like reduction in lost time injuries. The worker themselves can't control 100 or 1,000 employees from not getting hurt. That maybe they can help themselves and their colleagues, but they should not have this weight on their shoulders. This is really management, executive team, the company themselves that has that power, right? Of making real change. Individuals can control things like wearing their own personal protective equipment, but also, being an advocate for it. So making sure that when you do any type of safety awards or safety behavioral programs, making sure it's realistic, it's smart, specific, measurable, achievable results, and time bound. Making sure that the person can do it. Don't lead them to failure, right? So going back and digressing back to the different theories, here's reinforcement theory. It's the power of external rewards and punishment. Again, if you take an organizational behavior or psychology 101, this is going to be a refresh, right? Um, it's the likelihood of an act being performed again is determined by its current consequences. So the reward and punishment, right? Uh, it increases when current performance of that behavior is followed by a reinforcing reward. So when Ryder gets fed, when he sits pretty, gives me his paw, he knows he gets a treat, right? Um, and it decreases, reinforcement theory decreases when current performance of that behavior is followed by punishment, right? So what does our HR policy say around discipline? How do supervisors and managers deal with their employees that aren't acting safe? Are they punitive in nature? How harsh is it? Are we now creating new hazards like psychosocial hazards? So that reward versus punishment type of theory of reinforcement. There's something called ABC model, the antecedent, the behavior, and the consequences. Any behavior occurs because events trigger the behavior. Antecedents results from the behavior, which is the consequences. So when I tell Ryder to sit, he knows. And give me paw, he's going to get a nice sweet reward, right? Goal setting. This is super important. We really underestimate writing down goals. I'll be the first one to admit I don't write down all my goals, but some I do. They should be smart, right? And I'll try to find a video or some more information on smart goal setting. But they should be that specific, measurable. Can you measure it? Like, do you plan on quit smoking? Okay, so you plan on quit smoking. Well, is it measurable? How are you going to measure that? When are you going to do it? Are you going to go cold turkey? Are you going to do it, sliding down? Are you going to do nicotine patches, right? How do you measure success, right? Um, I think it's achievable or actions. What actions are you going to take? Is it realistic? Are you going to do it right at New Year's Day or New Year's Eve? Maybe you want to do it at a time that isn't during holidays, or maybe you want to pick a time that's more realistic because they say New Year's Eve goals aren't realistic. Um, results. What type of results are that you can measure against, that you can see, that you hope to get, and time bound, right? Timing and writing down and visiting these goals, I think, are so important. I think just saying them just isn't enough. So you got to write it down, got to sign off on it. You got to say you're going to do it. Having a little calendar. And, sometimes you just got to take it day by day, especially if it's things like an addiction like smoking. Um, you have to write this stuff down. So behavior is motivated by internal intentions. This is not an external thing. This really is, you've had enough of smoking. You've just called it a day. Doesn't matter how much pressure you can get from family, friends, people who care about you, coworkers, you know, even, a doctor tells you not to do it. You're not going to listen until you decide it's time for you, right? Sometimes it's just your own health is telling you you can't smoke anymore, right? But whatever it is, it truly is internal intention. So goals serve as an antecedent to behaviors in four ways: direct attention and action to the desired behavior, mobilize effort towards actions to achieve the goal, increase persistence. Even when you want to pick up that cigarette, don't do it. Tell yourself, don't do it, don't do it. Motivate, search for effective strategies to help attain your goal, right? So when you stop smoking, and I'll be a self-professed ex-smoker, I did a cold turkey, gained 10 pounds eating chocolates out of the vending machine, okay? Went right back on smoking a year after that. And then I said, that really wasn't that effective for many reasons for me, cold turkey. I just reduced my numbers of smoking. I changed to lower nicotine. And then I just complemented that with Nicorette gum, which tasted awful. And I set a timeline. I said, in 1 month, I'm going to do this. I said, I'm house sitting. I'm looking after friends' dogs and cats and rabbits and God knows what else I was looking after. And I was pretty much homebound, looking after all those animals. And I said, no alcohol. I'm not going to do any triggers to activate the smoking more than it needs to. And I did go cold, I after a month, and I have not smoked since. So for me, that's worked for me, but I wrote it down. I said 1 month. My strategy is, I'm going to reduce my numbers. I'm going to reduce the type of cigarette in terms of nicotine content, and it worked. And I have been smoke free for, oh goodness, I don't even know how many years, over 20 years. But you got to make it realistic, make those SMART goals happen. They have to also be difficult and challenging, or else it's not really a goal. It's kind of like status quo. You got to evolve as a human being. You got to make it difficult for yourself. It has to be that achievable. You have to be able to do it, right? And what are the actions you're going to take, right? What's so specific about your goal, right? You have to list it. You have to write it down. You have to be committed. And constant feedback. And I kept looking at, I wrote down on the little calendar, it's an old school calendar, and I just wrote it down, how many cigarettes I had that day. And I looked at my feedback and it was like, wow, I started with, however number of cigarettes. And it was like, wow, after a week, I already reduced it by that much. Well, it's time now to reduce the nicotine content. Let's get an even lighter cigarette. And I was really impressed. Like in 1 month, you can achieve so much, but you have to see it. Self-determination theory. Wow, people are motivated by a whole bunch of things, aren't they? That's why being in health and wellness is so creative. We're all unique. We're all beautiful. Um, you need to find out why people are doing what they want to do, right? It's really, you have to customize. It's smoking cessation, losing weight, improving your health. It really has to be customized. It's like, what makes the person tick, right? Um, it's different categories of motivation reflecting people's varied reasons for acting. What is making these people tick? What is there something deeper? Um, it's very, you know, you can get kind of lost in it. It's very interesting, I find. I find motivation behavior is very, very interesting. Well, amotivation means, oh, they've given up. Complete lack of motivation. Their hands are crossed over. They're, not engaged. They're just sitting back and going, nope, not interested. Then we got intrinsic motivation. How do you feel inside? Right? So I always use these two, intrinsic versus extrinsic. Remember how you feel inside. I should put maybe like a little heart here. How do you feel inside? It's motivation based on one's interest and enjoyment. And extrinsic is external. Think of money. Let it rain money, 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 money. It's motivation rooted on an instrumental reasons for acting. Also, are people motivating you, right? It's those external drivers, right? Are people looking at, let's say, fashion magazines and, they see, oh, everybody's so thin, so then I'm going to be thin and I gotta lose weight and all that stuff. This is how you feel inside, right? Do you feel better after you stop smoking? Extrinsic motivation is people are family, um, friends, or even the company saying, hey, I'm going to give you $1,000 for quit smoking it, and I'm going to pay for your smoking cessation. So try to remember this: intrinsic as inside. How do you feel? Extrinsic motivation is external. Autonomous motivation, self-directed motivation, reflecting an individual's free will. Are we autonomous or not? What kind of freedom do you have here? Controlled motivation, motivation based in response to pressure. Mom's telling me to stop smoking. It stinks. My hair stinks. She's upset with me, right? Versus, you know what? I just want to quit. I don't like how I feel. I can't walk up a hill without huffing and puffing, so I'm going to quit smoking. Versus controlled motivation and pressure. Mom tell me stop smoking. Also thinking too of taxation of cigarettes, right? Sometimes that was actually my first driver of my first time quitting was, oh my goodness, it's too expensive. I gotta stop this. Whereas the other one was, you know what, I just don't need to smoke anymore. So when they raised the prices of cigarettes and taxes, that was a controlled motivation. And the second time I successfully won the battle of stop smoking was because it was my own free will. I wasn't even sick other than just huffing and puffing going up a hill. Some important contrasts in self-determination theory: a motivation, complete lack of motivation versus motivation, willingness to exert effort to enact a behavior. We talked about extrinsic versus intrinsic. This has more sticky factor, by the way. This only goes so far. Controlled also goes so far, and autonomous goes so much further, right? So I find, for me anyway, when I have freedom, when I decide to do it on myself, and I have that SMART goal that I write down and I see it on the calendar, those things motivate me. So I'm truly motivated by intrinsic autonomous motivation. Here's some things to think about in terms of, I guess, a different visual of, this is a visual representation of what I talked about. Summary of the different levels and types of motivation in self-determination theory. So no motivation is a motivation, the person sitting back going, nope, not doing this today. No, thank you. I am not engaged. Not happy. Here we got extrinsic, let it rain money. Let me throw money at you. Controlled motivation. My mom's saying, stop smoking, you stink. Then you got things like autonomous motivation. Do I have some freedom here? You're still extrinsically motivated, but is there a little bit of freedom here in this, right? Versus intrinsic motivation and internal, right? I work best when I have full autonomy, full freedom. I decide to do it myself, for myself. That works for me in the long run. When I'm extrinsically pressured or controlled, like introjected, where the government is forcing its hand, raising up taxes, price of cigarettes, that doesn't work for me. It worked for a very short period of time. Increasing opportunity for safety behavior. Opportunity, resources, and organizational support for safety behavior must be in place in conjunction with ability and motivation. You need to get the money. You need to get the man and woman power. You need to have the committee going. You need to get people on your side. You need to have the time to also put it in place. Management must demonstrate and communicate commitment to a health and safety culture and climate. They need to walk the talk. They can't just offload that off to the Joint Health and Safety Committee. They truly have to believe it. They cannot feign it. They cannot fake it. They need to really exhibit it and walk the talk. Safety climate, as I said earlier, it's shared perceptions about among employees. Is everybody talking the same language about safety? Do people even know that you have a joint health and safety committee? Do people know that there's policies and procedures? Do they know that they're protected under the Act? Have they been trained? Have they been told to work unsafely, which is not the right thing to do? You need to not just do it from a public relations marketing perspective. You need to breathe, eat, live safety, enforce it when you have to, but praise when people are doing well. So yeah, you need to support your safety with policies, training, yes, maybe some signage, act safe, be safe, promote safety, but also tie it into the company's overarching goals and, you know, tie it also into production goals, right? Safety comes first. So are you wearing your occupational health and safety on the edge of your sleeves, a badge of honor? Are you talking about health and safety every day? It's not enough just to have the safety awards saying 0 accidents, 0 near misses, 0 fatalities. Are they really caring for their employees? Are they reinforcing the messages? Are they themselves wearing the masks or are they not wearing the masks, right? Opportunity for safety behavior, active safety leadership. We have things like active transactional leadership and we have transformational leadership. This is long term. When you transform someone, that is long term. It's like professors. You've had professors that are like, okay, you must do this, you shall do this. And I say the same thing too, because you have exams and assignments and stuff like that. But do you have professors that transform you? When you leave the course, when you leave even a class, when you leave the program, and some of you have seen these transactional leadership. You need both, actually. You need both. You need a little bit of this dust-in of extrinsic rewards, of let it rain money and praise, and a little bit of you shall do this and you must do this safely to, hey, I care about your well-being. And talking the praises of safety and always looking at, innovative ways to be safe. Not just, oh, we're going to place a job with robots, right? Do we have this motivational leaders that inspire you to make you believe in health and safety yourself, to take care of yourself, not just for you and your family, but your fellow colleagues, right? So occupational health and safety management systems, what is it? Why bother? Remember, ask yourself that every week. What is our topic? Why is it important? It reflects an interactive collection of strategic organizational approaches and programs focused on identifying, achieving, and maintaining desires of occupational health and safety targets. So we're hitting targets now. 0 misses, 0 near misses, 0 fatalities, 0 injuries. Our claims are going down for workers' compensation, less absenteeism, better productivity, It's the ability to motivate and provide that opportunity for safety behavior within the entire company. Leaders at all levels and not just management team and not just executives, because there you can find leaders who are subject matter experts. They may not have the manager title, but they themselves are advocates and transformational leaders too. So leaders from all levels and areas of a company or organization play that instrumental role in prioritizing, integrating, and communicating the safety. Constant feedback, constant messaging. Here are some additional elements for an effective occupational health and safety management system. Again, management commitment, training, hazard control, right? We talked about RAC system and the hazard control system, goals and objectives, leadership, procurement. Are we getting also the right masks for the job, the right ones? Performance measurement is tied to people's fat bonuses. How are we communicating it? How are we evaluating the system? We should be looking at our policies and procedures at least once a year whenever there's a change in the company. We should, oh, I just saw glass go down a Spadina in front from a condo. That's awful. Talking about health and safety. Sorry, I digress. I was just watching CP24. Construction site with the window just hanging. Continuous improvement. So you may have heard of Six Sigma, lean. That's continuous quality improvement. And integrating every part of our life. Here are some actual standards that are recognized. CSA, Canadian Standards Association for Occupational Health and Safety. I will give you information if I didn't post it. It's the Plan, Do, Check, Act model. This is Canadian recognized, the CSA, and I'm not going to say all these numbers, model. It's a highly recognized model for health and safety. And here's a visual of it. Maybe you can incorporate this in something in your health and wellness. This is the act, plan, do, and check again, right? Acting, management review, maybe some sign off, some budgets, some resources. Give me some resources. Continuous improvement, always doing better, Six Sigma, lean. Plan your health and safety review. Look at legal constraints, compliance requirements, hazard identification and risk assessment. Remember RAC, right? What kind of objectives and targets are you going to measure against? What's your baseline of acceptability? Do put in the infrastructure and resources, have preventative and protective measures, emergency prevention, preparedness. We're going to talk about that next week. So you can put this act, plan, do model, or rather plan, do, check, and act model, rather. You can put this in place for COVID. You can put this in place for emergencies like fire. What about competence? Remember, supervisors need to be competent. What about training, communication, constant awareness, procurement and contracting. You know, contracting, yes, health and safety experts, but procurement of supplies, are they up to snuff? Management of change management, big one. Documentation, checking, monitoring and measuring. Are we hitting those targets? How is our planning doing? Incident investigation analysis, so you'll have, daily, weekly, monthly. You compare year after year, month after month. Who's checking you? Who's the police? The internal auditors? Why not also get external auditors, right? Maybe they can add some insight. And what kind of preventative and correction actions we have in place. Okay, so I kind of did act, plan, do, but it's really an iterative process. So when we plan, we consider our hazards and risks at the particular workplace. So an office setting versus a mine site, completely different. Mine site and construction also has different legal requirements under the Green Book than an office setting. What are your overarching goals? When you do, what are you doing for ongoing safety activities? Emergency preparedness, we're going to talk about next week. We've already talked about training. What is your preventative measures? When you check your balances, You're going to check your balances of incident reports, investigations. What were your wins? Where do you need room for improvement? Where do you need to maybe do some auditing, get another set of eyes even, another department? And the act of continuous improvement, and maybe also get managers to review and sign off on. So I create these quite a bit, these occupational health and safety policies. They should be reviewed annually at the very least, or if there's a change in your company, you're changing from, let's say, a service offering to a product offering, you're bringing in new hazardous materials and chemicals. If you've opened up a new location, these are things you need to review and revamp your policies on health and safety. Make sure you get the president sign up and CEO to sign off on it. It should not just be HR or you doing it in health and wellness. You need to get them to sign off on it, and they need to be backing you up on that. It needs to be publicized, and the president and CEO should say, hey, the HR person or health and wellness has implemented this great program, this great organizational health and safety management system. I believe in it, and I want you to believe in it, and I've signed off on it, and we're going to go live. It's an exciting opportunity, right? And it has to be available to all employees, not just management. Outline the purpose of the program. So the purpose is, what is it? Why bother? What is it? Why is it important? Because that's part of your selling, right? And make employees involved in the process. Get their input, because if your policies and procedures aren't job specific and they go, whoa, 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 we didn't look at the welder over there in the corner, well, then that's an opportunity for us to get their input and revise our plans. It should be done in focus groups. Involve as many people as possible, because when they have a voice, when they have a say, they have autonomy to control their own lives, but also a voice. You're going to get their buy-in. We've talked about the CSA standards. It's like the stamp of approval. If you've ever seen an electrical plug, CSA approved, that little sticker, that little white sticker, CSA approved. Or an extension plug, CSA approved. It's a stamp of approval. In some cases, this occupational health and safety management systems are mandatory in some industries, whereas voluntary in others. So some construction or mining or other industries, let's say Dow Chemicals, we need to put this in place. Compliance within an occupational health and safety management system standard can help establish due diligence. Now, if you're an ISO regulated, let's say manufacturing, let's say it's 9001 ISO or 14002 ISO, I forget all of them, you're going to have to put in their specific occupational health and safety management system. Have a checklist. I love checklists. Your policy should have checklists, everything from incident reporting, accidents, communication, dates and time, of course, of when the policy was created, that the executive team signs off on it. But some questions that should be asked when evaluating, because you're monitoring, controlling, and evaluating your policy at all time, it is a clear commitment. You have to ask yourself, is your policy, is it a clear commitment to health and safety evident in your policy statement itself? Or are you scratching your head going, this ain't clear to me? Or this doesn't really feel like it's, a real clear commitment to health and safety? Just sounds like PR, a lot of marketing. Then it's an opportunity for you to change it, make it vibrant, make it really, livable document. Is a senior officer responsible for implementing and reviewing the policy identified? So who signs off on it? Is it just the supervisor? No, we need to get, I get even more people. I get the president, and I get the CFO to do it too. And if there's a chief operating officer, I get them to sign it off too. If there's 5 executives, I'm getting them to sign it. All of them. You're all held accountable, my viewpoint. You're going to buy into this. And of course, get that lovely stamp of approval from the President CEO. Here is some video links and make it accessible. Make it print version for AODA, have it on the internet, have video, have audio, have lots of ways to communicate, your policies and procedures. Here's some video links. I invite you to please watch them. I think it's important. It may even help you with your assignments. And activities, my party note, please review your workplace on policies and procedures on health and safety, but also signage. Do you have signage? Do you have friendly reminders? Do you have somewhere listed 0 accidents, 0 near misses this month? I don't know, just be curious. So I hope you found this helpful. Thank you for taking this time to listen to this almost 1 hour video. Wow. I look forward to seeing you in class. Cheers.